Okay, bonjour. So, translation into English from French. And the key thing we need to look for is the context. So the context is the environment, and we need to look at the tenses, the time phrases, and find the subject and the main verb of each sentence. So if we were to break this down into English, it would be on the reading paper, so 9 sections, for example. So you could perhaps break it up into these. These are just suggestions, of course. Punctuation is always helpful for thinking about where to put your sections and having a look at these. So just have a look, find the main subjects and find the main verbs of these sentences. And conjunctions or linking words are very good places to look as well. Find the nouns. Obviously, when you're thinking about nouns, we need to think about what has to happen when we go into English and whether or not we need to take out things, so omit things. So we call that translation by omission, or indeed whether we have to add in things. So adding in little words. Now, things like prepositions, so at, in, to, may make a difference, or articles might make a difference. And sometimes, of course, we know the tense doesn't always translate literally. So think about those as well, and how we have the subject, stem, and ending. So let's just count up. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we were to make 9. So perhaps that. So 7. And let's go for this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8. And if we were to think about another one, perhaps these ones in front of pour are perhaps a good way to go forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we're thinking about doing this together, finding the main subject. So here, for example, we've got je and the main verb be. Now, of course, when we see texts, as in the reading paper, you won't see them in the infinitive form necessarily unless they're the double verb structure, or in this instance, after the word pour, such as in order to. Now, we don't always make it explicit, do we? When we say in order to, we just say to sometimes. So having a look at these, it all comes down to vocabulary as well. So this one, we've got the subject and the main verb, so trier. And this one, the subject, je, it's J apostrophe in front of a verb beginning with a vowel, utilise, from utiliser. This one, we've got mes parents, which is the same as saying they, ils. And then you've got your verb, irregular verb, part of avoir that goes with they. And we need to think about tense. So we've got, how many verbs have we got here? So we've got the main verb that goes with the subject. And then look at the end of this one. We have got an I after a verb that's got a bit of avoir. So we know it's a past participle from réussir. This one, if we look, has got a subject, part of avoir, again, as the main verb. So that could be just present tense. But if we look at the next verb, we can see that the end of that next verb is E accent. So from ER verb in the past tense. Then if we look at the time phrases, so we've got chaque semaine, we've got ce soir, this evening, and then look at this one, demain matin. So we know from the demain it's going to be future. Well, is it the going future or the will future? Well, again, let's find the subject. Je. Then you've got the main verb from aller, I go or I'm going. Then we need to look at the end of the third verb. So if you've got that verb, so we think, okay, it could be present tense, I go or I'm going. Look at the next one. It's an infinitive ending, er, so I'm going to what? Okay. And thinking about when we're talking about food and drink and flavors and so on, we use the preposition à, such as à and le. goes to O, doesn't it? A and la is à la. Don't forget that the accent there makes the difference, because if you didn't have the a on the accent for to, at, or in, it would mean the verb have, well, has from the verb to have. So he has, she has. Then, of course, L and apostrophe. And then, of course, if it's plural, A and le goes to what? That's right, goes to AUX, okay? So when we're talking about flavors, we have these here, don't we? So we wouldn't necessarily say a smoothie to the strawberries. That wouldn't make sense. Thinking about sometimes as well with nouns. So we've already talked about tenses and time phrases giving us a clue, but be careful because venir de and depuis use the present tense in French but the past in English. We've talked about finding the subject and the main verb, but we've also talked that after looking after the main verb, you've got to look at if there's another verb, is it ending in E accent or an I or a U for past, or S or T or U squashed to if it's irregular? Are we talking about an ER, IR, RE infinitive? Is it the going future? Is the next one, what is the coming after it? Is it a modal verb from vouloir, pouvoir, devoir, in which case it would need an infinitive after it as well? So thinking about then your nouns, you've got your nouns, les odeurs. Think of two synonyms for that verb there, for that noun there. Le verre, les emballages, l'eau. Thinking about gender. Now, it's not necessarily relevant in this instance, but of course it could be if you're going into French, thinking about the gender of the noun and the number. L'eau is feminine, water. We've got clues as well, haven't we? Such as ma, so giving us an idea about gender. But thinking about de, now de is a preposition. De is a multifaceted preposition. It could be used for many different things too. So of, from, some. When we're using du, de, la, de, it gets replaced by that pronoun on if we want to avoid repetition and say it or them. But of course, with possession, we have to swap around the syntax, don't we? The word order. So, for example, the water of my shower. Well, we wouldn't say that necessarily, would we? So, think about changing your word order and your syntax. Okay, bonne chance. And your main aim as a translator, I was taught with my masters, was to make it sound as natural as possible. So, thinking about word order and putting in or taking away. Be careful though, attention, because you don't want to make it too dynamic, as they call it, too free and easy translation. You do want to make sure that you're looking about the key ideas. And if it sometimes, of course, yes, in French we use avoir with a noun, such as, I have hunger, I have thirst, I have luck. And in English, we tend to use be and an adjective, such as I am hungry, I am cold, I am lucky. But of course, we don't always want to make it too free and easy. So be careful about that. But yeah, your main aim is to make it sound natural, but still maintaining the key ideas. So when you've gone into English, you need to chunk it up into the same 9 sections and then check chunk by chunk by chunk, chunk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and check that you've not missed out on those key ideas, particularly those prepositions like, if they were not necessarily in this instance, but where you want to avoid repetition of it or them or of it or of them or to their, yes, or their, for example. So sometimes we need to be careful about those. This is a foundation translation, but sorry, a higher translation. So you're likely to have some areas where you're trying to avoid repetition. Merci. Au revoir.